Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the next installment with In Conversation With. I am Erica Stark, the Executive Director of the National Hemp Association, and today we are honored to have Sarah Mitchell from King's Agriseed. Welcome, Sarah.
Well, thank you so much.
We're glad to have you. So let's start with a little background about you and who King's Agriseed is and what you do.
Okay. I am a horticulturist professionally, which means that I'm interested in ornamental crops, but uh, also niche crops. And that's where hemp fits. Hemp certainly fits into a niche crop as far as agriculture goes. And we're trying to build that. So it's not an unknown niche or a scary niche. It's really the thing about adding it to King's portfolio of all kinds of agronomic seeds is that we wanted to add another revenue stream for our farmers and give them another option, another crop to grow. So that was basically it.
Excellent. And how long has King's Agriseed been in business?
Since the 90s, we are a certified seed seller. Our footprint is from Virginia to Maine, and so hemp is just a tiny fraction of our crop portfolio.
Right. And that's, but to your point, like it being a part of, I think that is in some ways what we kind of need this industry to look at. Like hemp is a part of farming operations. Hemp is a part of plant-based product solutions. Hemp is a part of wellness. It's a part of agriculture. It doesn't have to be everything to everyone all the time. And that's how we're going to slow and steady build these markets. I think the industry has suffered a little bit from trying to make hemp the be all end all of everything. And it can be, but we're not there yet. So super excited to see that you've added hemp into your already very successful business, because that's the path forward, I think, for everyone.
Yeah, it's really terrific. King's Agriseeds is very customer centric. So we are really relying on our varieties to deliver something of value to the farmer. And we are also very focused on, for hemp anyway, the end market too, so that we carry the right varieties. It's really important that if somebody is after grain, for example, that we have really top quality grain varieties. Or if someone is after fiber for fabric purposes, that we carry those varieties too. It isn't enough just to offer hemp. We offer just rock solid varieties from reputable breeders.
That's excellent. And so let's talk a little bit about certified seed as a concept in general, because I think there's a little bit of misconception for a lot of people of what it is and what it isn't, and why farmers really do gravitate towards certified seed, because obviously you've been selling certified seed long before you started selling hemp. So can you talk a little bit about why certified seed in a non-regulatory environment, like there's no laws around corn or soy, but farmers buy certified seed and they buy it for a reason. So can you talk a little bit about those reasons of what makes certified seed in many cases superior?
Well, I think it's really important, like you said, to just add hemp to the agronomic system. And we need to do that with hemp we just have to build the trust, right? You said we got off to a very rocky start, highs and lows. And what certified hemp seed, or actually going way back, certified seed is a seed that has been produced, and I'm talking about the stock seed now, the stock that goes into the bags. The seed that's in those bags has been produced in a particular way. And it is produced in certified fields so that there is very little weed content, absolutely no noxious weeds in the bags. That's kind of one of the easiest things to talk about. And then those varieties are produced so that they are true to type, meaning that when you plant a variety year after year after year, whether it's corn or hemp, you know that variety will reproduce the same results like year after year after year. Of course, that depends on the crop culture too, but it's about reliability. And then the third, there's a number of different things. I probably can't cover them all, but there's a minimum germination standard so that there is a high level of quality within that bag. And then finally, it's the farmer's recourse, a legal recourse against the breeder, because if something is in that bag that should not be there, if it's AASCA, American Association of Certified Seed Providers, it doesn't exactly match up, but it just means that if it's not right, it's you have a recourse. It's illegal. The seed that's in the bag has to match the label that's on the outside of the bag. So I think for King's Agriseeds and for our farmers, and I'm talking about the average farmer here who is growing just multiple different crops, whether it's dairy or equine or beef or chickens, llamas, whatever it might be, the AASCA certification adds a level of trust to hemp.
Well, to everything, right? So
to everything.
And that's the point I think I'm trying to hammer home, is that there are reasons to buy certified seed that are longstanding, that exist in all of agriculture, that are not unique to hemp. So and I think as we go towards more acres of cultivation, particularly on the fiber and grain side, farmers who are used to buying certified seed for their corn or their soy or whatever other crops they're going to be rotating hemp in with, I would agree that has to give them a level of comfort, that they're buying the same level and quality of seed that they're used to in their other rotations.
And not every seed is certified in our portfolio. Certification is just that extra step. So there are plenty of seeds that we offer that are not certified, and they grow just fine. But for hemp, I think we feel that, like I said, it's an added measure of trust. And it says something about it actually says something about our breeders, that they're going to that length to assure the high quality that's in the bag.
That's excellent. So you had a field day last year, which I attend, and you had some beautiful hemp growing there for sure. And I saw that you were doing some education a little bit about cover crops, and I think something that you called forecrops. Is that the right terminology?
Yeah, it's kind of we kind of thought it was Tim Fritz. He's an interesting character, pretty conservative. And when he asked me about calling these things forecrops, I said, "Oh, it could be a little sexy." And that was pretty funny. So forecrops are in preparation for what happens later, right? So it's kind of the buildup to planting hemp. And we've been doing this now with other crops. Again, just folding this all into what we do as King's Agriseeds. We have some mixtures that you plant in the fall that can impact corn, for example. We have seen an improvement in yield and in vigor and in weed control with corn based on particular complex mixes that we offer. We've also adapted that to other crops. For example, tobacco. Tobacco, we have another kind of tricky niche crop that we have another mixture, which is not like corn. And although both of these are like high nitrogen feeding crops, they're different. The mixture that comes before is sort of tailored to the crop that follows. And so in 2021, we tested a bunch of different things, everything from just straight cereal rye to this complex mixture that we offer for corn, thinking that if hemp is a high nitrogen feeder, probably this corn mixture, the forecrop for corn, which is called Maize Pro, that would probably boost some of the yield for hemp too. And what we found is we tested, Erica, it was wild. We tested 15 of these things, planted at different times because not everybody can get back in the field with a cover crop in October. So we tested some that were planted in March, like right about now, and some that were planted in late summer, because in the cycle of things, a farmer really doesn't look at spring only. They look from year to year to year to year and do this crop planning. So 15 different things. And it was like I was in, we grew auto CBD. So auto CBD is a little short crop. So we saw results really quickly too. And I kind of liken it to walking into an elementary school, because CBD grows really fast and so do little kids at that age. But if you walked in, you could see where the kindergartners were and where the third graders were and where the fifth graders were. But then there was a kindergartner and then a fifth grader again. And it had nothing to do with my fertility. It had nothing to do with the varieties that we planted, because that was all the same. The difference was what happened to the soil in the previous months. And that was just, it was just so, it was like a stair step. It really was. It was really remarkable how that changed. And so in 2022, we took the best and the worst of those things, because of course, maybe it was a fluke, right? It's agriculture, different soil conditions from one end of the field to the other. Maybe it's just a fluke. And so we tried it again, and we will be proving it again this year, because you just can't say, oh, this grew well, I'm going to use that all the time.
Right.
It has to be over time, just over time. These things do take time. And so we proved them again this past summer, got slightly different results, but still the concept is really, really clear that what you plant, it's like an appetizer. It is like a forecrop. You're getting the buildup there for the hemp that follows. So it's very interesting.
Is a forecrop and a cover crop kind of like essentially the same thing, just sort of different? Like a cover crop you would plant in the fall and leave it in the ground over the winter, whereas the forecrop would be more so something that you plant in the really early spring, like you said, like around now. But the concept's the same. Like it's just something that stabilizes the soil and potentially put some nutrients back in. But they're not cash crops in and of themselves.
But they can be.
They can be,
but it depends on the farm. I mean, people could graze their animals in the forecrop, and
okay.
and it all depends what the rest of the farm is doing. So there's a lot in common with a cover crop. Yes, it enhances the soil. Yes, it's a cover crop that is planted in the prior season and carried over the winter. We did find that spring planted cover crop, it held the soil and it prevented erosion, but it didn't really do much for the hemp. I think the biology didn't have enough time to really get very robust. So late summer, fall planting seems to give you the best bang for the buck when it comes to hemp, and for corn and tobacco too, frankly. So all of that is in common with the cover crop: erosion, soil health, organic matter, some nutrient kick, with nitrogen or those kinds of things. But the difference is that this is specifically paired with the cash crop. So for example, cereal rye, right? Very common cover crop. When we plant it with corn and tobacco and hemp, those crops do okay. It isn't necessarily negative, but it doesn't contribute to this high vigor that I'm seeing with other crops. One that is negative is wheat. Wheat and hemp, they fight. Wheat has a terrible effect on emergence and on vigor with hemp. So that was just eye-opening. But so do you understand now that it's really a particular pairing of the cover crop with particular components in it, and they have to work with the hemp. And like I said, the cover crop the cover crop that worked with corn, it did okay with hemp, gave it a little boost, but not as big as some of our others, like Soil Builder Plus. That gave a really nice boost.
So you're creating different formulas for different applications. So if a farmer was going to come to you and be like, I'm going to add hemp into my rotation, like you could recommend to that, like if they're currently in a rotation of say like corn and soy, and they're going to add wheat, add hemp, you could recommend like the cycle of what that rotation should look like and what the fore and cover crops should be in between each different rotation, so they
Right.
get the maximum yields for each of their rotations.
Right. And to be aware, just to be aware that for example, you mentioned wheat can follow hemp, but hemp should not follow wheat because of whatever is going on. And I will say, King's is a seed company, not a microbiology company. So
Sure.
the scientists who came to that field day, and there was it was just remarkable. The brain power was at that field day, and the networking throughout the industry. They asked me, so what's going on? Do you know what's going on with the mycorrhiza and the fungi? And no, well, we do look at the roots. It's just me looking at the roots, digging up plants and looking at the
Right.
roots.
But you
And
can
we
see what's working and what's not working, even if you don't necessarily understand the science of the why.
exactly. And I think that's how we relate to farmers too, because farmers are not typically microbiologists either. They don't exactly have a electro microscope in their shed either. But we look at the top. And so we're measuring the data, trying to measure yield, and we're just overall observing the crop from the time that we plant it. I mentioned Tim before. He has an extrasensory perception about field soil. He can, after it's been tilled, he can walk from one strip with rye in it, and the next strip has Soil Builder Plus. It's like he's walking on different pillows, and he can say, "Oh, I can tell this is fluffier, this is denser." I don't have that skill, not yet, but he does, and it's funny. Everybody, I think what I love about working in this industry is that it brings so many people with different perspectives together. The doctors and the lawyers who want to nurture the soil, and the farmers who want to produce a crop that can really benefit the globe. It's wonderful. We all have a role in it.
That's awesome. So you mentioned something about tilling.
Yeah.
So have you done different experimentations with hemp and with the cover and forecrops in a till versus a no-till environment?
So when we started out, when we're evaluating varieties and how to grow a crop, and this is the research part, you want to limit your variables. Mm-hmm. So that you're looking at essential pieces, emergence, for example. And if I have a cover crop that is a very dense cover crop and it doesn't come up, there's all kinds of things that could go wrong there. So what we've done so far, and this is 2020, 21, 22, we've done light tillage, incorporating the cover crops or the forecrops into the soil and then planting the crop, just really to eliminate variables so we can concentrate on what is going on, making the field all uniform. So for 2023, I am happy to say that we are evaluating no-till methods in comparison to the till methods. We think we've got the right mix of cultural recommendations to grow hemp successfully, but now we have to adapt that to what else is going on in the market. And certainly no-till is a key component also in preserving our water, preserving our soil, maintaining that rich microbiome that we grew all winter, and then you till it and it's all oxidized and the fungi die. So now we're ready to tackle that. And
that's amazing.
It takes time, and unlike unlike my greenhouse environment where I could do multiple crops and say, oh, this is how it works. I have learned to be more patient, Erica,
Well, you
with
get one shot a year, right? Like,
one shot a year. Except with auto CBD. Oh my gosh, auto CBD, you can grow multiple crops with that and make adjustments on the fly for your next crop that really can improve it. So
so
that's
that's another question. Have you noticed any difference in cover or forecrops? Is there a difference in cannabinoid hemp versus fiber and grain hemp in terms of what it responds to? Like, so I always think that cannabinoid hemp is typically cultivated much more like tobacco, as it than it is like corn or soy, just with the row spacings and the methods that are used to plant it. But nutrient wise and weed suppression wise, do you see any difference between the two?
well, as you know, you can't plant CBD hemp and fiber and grain hemp in the same field at the same time.
Well, you
Although
can, it's just not smart, right?
well, I was going to say, we tried it and lost in 2020. Tim said to me, Sarah, you were supposed to be watching for this. What happened? And I said, oh, I didn't know. So, anyways, yeah, our first crop we had these same hemp, some of the same varieties that we grew. That we still carry today. Those are our Canadian varieties for grain and some for fiber. But we grew those in 2020 right next to a really beautiful field of CBD. And sure enough, I left on Friday and things were all great. And I returned on Monday and a colleague and I were looking at the field and he's looking at, and I've never seen this before, right? 2020, it was my first crop. I really had to be quite observant. And then he looked at this, stem sticking up in the fiber side. And he says, kind of push the little, the little sacs. And he said, Sarah, isn't this pollen? And I go, oh yeah. Well, I have to tell you, Tim gave me the eagle eye and within 4 hours, that field was down. It was down faster than twinkle of an eye. Oh boy.
Pollen's a thing. It's a big thing. I remember the first hemp field I walked into, the first year we did a pilot program in 2016, I think it was. That the years just sort of escaped me, but walking in and then coming out completely green, just like from head to toe. My hair was green, everything was green, and I was like, "Nope, that's the pollen."
Another thing is the odor, Erica. The odor, right? The aroma. And I have taken my car to have the oil change, and I've slipped my business card across the counter and saying, if the guys smell something in my car, they don't have to look. There's really nothing in there. This is what I do for a living. Nothing in the glove box or under the mats or in the spare tire compartment. It's just me and my job. So I carry my hemp license with me at all times in case I get stopped. And I tell you
Probably
what,
a good choice.
yeah, I really monitor my speed on the highway.
Have you seen any changes in the types of seed that are being purchased? Like, are you seeing more? So I'm just, for me, from my perspective with the National Hemp Association, like everything was dominated by CBD production in the early years, and we're starting to slowly see fiber and grain pick up more traction, more interest in it, and more acres being planted. Have you seen something similar in your sales into the types of seeds that are being purchased?
Well, in 2019, we brought on the grain varieties, right? And that we expected, and I think grain is so promising, just really, really, grain hemp is so promising. And it fits. We harvest corn, we harvest wheat, all these things. We should harvest grain too. So Tim and King's Agriseeds brought on Hemp Genetics International varieties for grain and fiber, and they tend to get about 5-6 feet tall in area. But in 2021, we had demand for fiber hemp, and so our demand changed, And we brought on international hemp because their varieties are larger. Yes, they're still dual purpose. They produce fiber and grain, but they're taller than the Canadian varieties. They're genetically taller. And so we brought those on in 2021. And that's kind of been a nice melding of grain, short, easy to handle, easy to harvest varieties versus the taller ones that of course have a much different complexity when it comes to harvest. You have to know how to handle taller varieties. And then I think the third piece, and I'm really excited about this too, is New West Genetics. We talked last year, and New West Genetics is out of Colorado. Mm-hmm. And they have different varieties for ideally at the time, 2021, they were after some grain varieties. So I wanted to see them because when we have them at our own latitude, you know, Lancaster County is around 40. We don't have anything from the 40th latitude. And there sits Colorado and Colorado breeding. And so we brought them on, and we could see instantly from the time of emergence that these plants were more uniform in height and more vigorous than some of the other varieties that we carried. They're all pretty vigorous, but there was something about the New West Genetics varieties that really stood out. Right, I mean, day two, day 3, day 4, right from the beginning. And so that was just emergence is such a big challenge for hemp, and we want to get we want to get a reliable population in the field year after year after year, and we want to just getting the crop started properly is the most important thing a grower can do. And what we saw with the New West Genetics was they were different from day one, very, very different. They're all really terrific varieties, and these grew pretty tall too, taller than our varieties from international hemp actually. So very, very impressive.
Excellent. So to that point, from farmers I've talked to across the country, that where you are is something that's super important as to how any genetic is going to perform. And I think that's one of the things that we've kind of suffered for a little bit, and it's nobody's fault, right? It's just a mechanism of time. To your point, you have one shot a year. So like, we can't just assume that every genetic is going to perform the same way in every region. So do you have any kind of database that sort of documents performance in different locations? So if somebody comes to you, like, you're like, okay, you're in the Southeast, so we think this genetic is going to be the best bet for you. Or are we still in that kind of trial and errors kind of phase of this?
Well, yes, we are looking at latitude because, I think initially I promised Bielobreski would get to 13 feet. Well, it might do that where it originated at a much higher latitude. But for us, it got about, 8, 9 feet in Lancaster County. My farmers in New York, they got taller than they did in Lancaster County. So even that 4-hour drive north makes a big difference when it comes to performance. I can tell you that the breeders are working hard to address the U.S. market. It's big, and
varied.
and varied, exactly. So, I've had farmers, I've sold seed from border to border, north to south, coast to coast, California to, Long Island, and also in Alaska and Hawaii. So whoopee!
That's about everything.
That's about everything, and not all fiber hemp either. But at any rate, our breeders are working hard to get varieties that are bred for the U.S. market, wherever you might be. So I can tell you that in addition to the 40th latitude with New West Genetics, Jeff Kostuic, they merged, Hemp Genetics International merged with Tritium 3H in 2021, and now they're known as Verve Seed. And Raleigh is their breeder, and Raleigh has been working with the USDA Germplasm Bank. And so there's a lot there. They are breeding for the US market. And we will have, I think it's up to a dozen new varieties in our trial this year. Nice. From Verve Seeds. It will be fantastic. So we can see that the differences and advances in breeding. I'm seeing it already, and we will not be growing the same varieties 5 years from now than that we're growing today. Yeah. And then International Hemp, they're working with Cornell in order to breed varieties that are also suitable for the US market. So it is, and we will have some of their, I think 2 of their new varieties on hand for our field day in August also. I'm so excited about the near future. How about that?
Yeah, that's super exciting. And is this the same, do other crops have the same issues with different performances in different latitudes?
Yep.
You know, like, so again, it's just the hemp industry has suffered from being prohibited for so long, and we're playing catch up with every other mainstream crop out there that you know has been researched for the last 100 years. And we kind of lost that benefit. So I'm super excited that you're doing this research. I hope I will be invited to your next field day so I can see what you got going on.
Yes, we will. And I wanted to just say, if anybody wants to be invited, I'm a pretty gregarious person. So people came from all over last year, and you are welcome to come. You will be so welcome to come. I'm delighted to meet you. And because I want the industry to grow as a whole, and we need to work together. And if we can, without herbicides, on the ticket here, without herbicides, we are really working at weed control, and that's part of that's really the big goal with the forecrops. But also, inputs are very expensive, and if we can grow our own nitrogen and improve our soil and do the weed control all with the same planning, boy, I'm all over that. Just.
And then you add no-till into it to deal with the whole carbon sequestration aspect of agriculture, and like that's like the magic sauce there. Yes. Incorporating the best of everything that agriculture has to offer, which way too often gets taken for granted in my opinion. People don't understand what actually goes into the very hard work that goes into agriculture and putting food on our tables, and not only from just the farmer side, but from your side too, and the genetics breeders and all of the research and everything that goes into making these systems sustainable and successful. So definitely applaud you and all of the work you do. I think in terms of a lot of the seed dealers, like you have something very special in the fact that you're not just a hemp seed, seller, right. That you have the knowledge and that you can really be a one-stop shop for people who are looking to have a system, a farming system, not just like focusing on a single crop. And I think that's going to, be super important. Like I said, hemp is part of a farming system. It's not the only thing. Like you can't monocrop hemp, just like you can't monocrop anything really,
Yeah.
So I think that's super unique. We will definitely be putting the link to your website at the end of this video, and we encourage everybody to check you out and look at what you have to offer in terms of your superior hemp genetics, but also your and cover crops as well, and learn how you can incorporate these things into your farming practice for a more successful and sustainable future for all of us.
Well, thank you so much, Erica. I really appreciate it and enjoyed talking with you. We had fun.
Yes, I enjoyed it too. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for watching. We hope you enjoyed this edition of In Conversation With. Make sure you check out King's Agriseed, and we'll see you next time.